for your website. Yes, Will.
Just wanted to let you know I only just now hit record.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so we're going to be creating layouts. We're going to be creating custom blocks. I want to show you the difference between creating a block that's just for one particular page or a block that you're going to be using on multiple different pages, or what we say, a reusable block. We're going to be going over responsive design on your guys' website, and then we're going to get a little creative of how we create those particular pages or landing pages for your sites. First off, I want to introduce myself. In case you do not know, my name is Vincent Salgado. I am the lead on the agency platform project. We also have Will here, who is our business administrator. I'm sure you've gotten lots of emails of him just kind of notifying you guys of upcoming trainings or user groups, as well as helping you out with SOWs. That's our team. We also have Ralph, who is not on a call right now, but he is also another developer we have on our staff who helps out with various agencies as problems arise. But yeah, and that is our team. And I'm sure you guys also know Justin Turner, who is our supervisor, who helps out with the platform from time to time. You'll probably, usually you guys are hearing from one of us. But first off, so this will be a hands-on training. I am going to send you guys a link to go to our training website, so you guys can follow along, where you're going to be having you guys do some tasks as we come about it. So I'm going to shoot you guys the link to the website, and also where you go to log in as well. That second link is where you go to log in. For your username, you want to use training user with capital T and a capital U. And then the password is capital P, and it's going to be password 1234. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes just to log in. Let me know when you guys do. Okay. I'm going to switch over to the website here. So let me switch over. So once you log into the website, you should be presented with this page. You'll say it's a member for, it says here 4 months. But to the left, how you know you're logged in, you'll see this white admin bar that pops up here to the left. We did go over it a little bit in our basics training, just kind of, where the nav bar and kind of the various tools that we can go ahead and do that. So just as a quick reminder, we start with our tools on top. That's where you're going to go to kind of flush cache usually, or you can go to log out of your website itself. The content section is where you go for your overview page to see all the content that is on your website, or to add new content. Then we have our structure, which is where we'll go for the different custom block libraries. That's for reusable blocks, as well as some other display modes that you may have some access to, depending on your roles. But this is also where you go to kind of edit menus and also edit taxonomy as well. We also have other things in here like appearance, extensions, and people. This is more so for higher privileges. For the most part, you guys won't see this onto your website just because of your permission levels right here. And for this training, we have a little bit of elevated permission levels here to get some things done. But everything that we do here today, we will be able to do. You should be able to do on your website, no issues. And then lastly, we have our training, our configuration here. You guys will see this on your particular website with your role, but for the most part, you won't be able to actually edit anything on here. It just happens to be on the admin menu itself. And then again, in case you are not familiar yet with the admin bar itself, you have the ability to kind of extend it here. So jumping in where we kind of last left off, we were playing around with adding pages onto the website. We were playing around with editing and adding different blocks onto a landing page or an interior page for different basic pages, different content that we were doing. So we kind of want to build off of that. So as a refresher, we're going to go ahead and we're going to build just a basic page here. I'm going to build a basic page. I'm going to add content, go to basic page, and I'm going to create a page called My Cool Page. For this one, because we're going to be kind of working off of this one, I don't want a body here. I'm going to be adding blocks of information on there. So I'm going to keep it, keep nothing in the body. I want to make sure that I add this to the main menu. So I'm going to provide a menu link and then make sure the parent item is main navigation. And then I'm going to go down and everything else just leave as default, and I'll click save. So again, with this, what we're doing, obviously, we just created a basic page that's just going to give me a blank template to work with, and then we'll kind of build from it from here. In case you guys are following along, you guys are creating your own basic pages at the moment. Make sure to make My Cool Page the main parent item, just so everything will drop down below there, or else we'll have too many items here in that top navigation. But now that I have my page created, I know I'm kind of throwing a little bit of information here. Does anybody have any questions so far on anything? Okay. So moving along here, again, just refreshing where we last left off. When we create a basic page that has nothing in there but the title itself, we can use this kind of as a starting point for our landing page or interior page that we are creating. So I'm going to go ahead and in this top, at the top of the page, you'll see this tab menu up here where you can go in, you can edit the actual page itself or manage display. You can kind of leave those things alone, but I do want to go out to this layout tab. This will bring me into the layout builder. In the last class, we kind of went through when we were adding in banner images, we were playing around with different blocks. So I'm going to go ahead for this particular page. I'm going to add in a banner image here at the top. So for this one, I just going to go to the top, the big blue button that says Create Custom Block here on the right-hand side. I'm going to create that. I am going to go into the banner section. I'm going to call it, the title will be My Cool Page. I'm not going to have a description. I don't need a link for this particular banner. And then I'm going to add the media in here. I'm just going to take what is already in here. I will use, let's see, scroll down here. I will use this one as an example. So insert. So now I got my media in there. I don't need a link. I just need a thing. I'm going to add in a image overlay, which is going to put in a dark overlay over the image. So it allows my title for the banner to stick out a little bit better. And then I'm going to add block here. So once I do, as you can see, I have my image is uploaded. I have my banner here at the top, and I'm just going to go ahead and click Save. So now I have just my banner at the top of my page. Just kind of gives me the first step of kind of what I'm building out for this particular page itself. I used a custom block. Obviously, it was called banner that we used to be able to put on this page. Now, this is a one-time use block. So once I put it onto this particular page, I can't use this anywhere else. We will be going over today how to create a block that can be used on multiple pages themselves. But first, does anybody have any questions on kind of this refresher of where we last left off? All right. So now that I have that page created, what I want to go over with you guys here, and this is something new, is that I want to go over the layout builder a little bit more in depth. We're going to be focusing on this today because this is where a lot of the power of editing content, of creating new content, and making something look unique for your particular website. So when we spin up a basic page, we are kind of set with this predefined layout that is built for us. This is just, we're trying to cover most of the bases that people have when they're first creating their when creating a page on their site. Usually they want to add a banner or a slideshow, and then maybe some content that goes underneath. However, the next thing that we want to start doing is actually start playing around with how that layout looks. So our default layout works for the most part, but obviously you're going to come across the case where you want something a little bit more unique or want to be able to do certain things. With our default layout, we do have the banner that goes across the top. We have the breadcrumbs that run across just below it with the title. And then we usually have a body field for the page. And then on the right hand, we have a sub navigation for sub pages. Now, once you first create that page, usually the main navigation won't show up unless it's already placed under a particular place on the website. So that will build automatically for you. However, for this case, we want to play around with what's here a little bit more. So in this one in particular, I'm going to delete out this whole section down here that contains the body field and the main navigation. And in case you guys do that and you want to go back and say, well, you know what, I want to add that main navigation or that sub navigation item in there, you can always do that. It doesn't permanently delete anything. It just kind of removes it from what we're working with at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove this. So I'm going to exit out. I'm going to click X on this section 3. It will ask me, it says, are you sure you want to remove section 3? I'm going to click remove, and when I do, it's going to remove all the blocks and everything that were in there. So I'm going to click remove, and now that section has now been removed. So now I'm going to just have the banner section and then the title section of where this is at. And just a reminder for those of you, for basic pages, as long as you're creating on a basic page, this doesn't affect any other pages but the page that you're working on. We have it so it is separated out. So if you do change this, it would only change for this website, or this particular page. So you don't have to worry that it's affecting other pages on your site itself. So there is again, the universal is that default. In case you guys ever wanted to change that universal, you can contact us and we can change what that universal layout looks like. But I am going to go ahead and at the bottom, as the last training, we did go over adding a block, right? That's going to add in a block of content of information onto this particular section. What we are going to focus on here is going to be adding a section. So what a section is and how it's different from adding a block, a section is going to be a region that you're able to actually put content blocks in there. So when I create this section, I can create it with multiple columns. I can create this that spans the entire width of the site, or it'll be within our designated areas with white space on both sides. And here you'll be able to kind of play around with the various layouts of what you're going to be able to do. So for the section, I'm going to add in a section here. Off to the right, just like how when we add in a block of information or content, we will have a pop-up menu that comes up to the right, and then we have the different pre-configured layouts that we can choose from. You can have one column, which is going to be just like this top one that's at where we have the title and the breadcrumb. You can have two columns, which means that you can put content side by side with each other. And then obviously the three columns, so on and so forth. So for this particular page, I want to add in 3 columns that are going to be side by side. So I click on that, and then it takes me to this additional menu. So we have container type, which allows you to either be to allow you to put white space on left or right side. It lines everything up with other content that may be on your page already. Or we can go edge to edge. Edge to edge is just what the banner is like. So when I put that banner at the top, it goes from the edge of the screen to the other edge of the screen with no white space on the left or right side. So depending on what you're creating there, again, you can play around with different ways of adding content and visually and how it looks. You could play with that edge to edge, but for the most part, you're probably going to want to stay in the box. The full is the same thing as the box. So just leave it as box as the default if that's what you want to go with. And then you have the ability to add gutters or without gutters, but that doesn't, again, it still sticks it with the white space on the left and right side. Next, we have our responsive design that's going here at the bottom. So we have, obviously, as we know, in today's world, we have our computer screens, we have our tablets, and we have our phones. How we want our content to look, depending on what device we're on, we can control that a little bit here with our section that we're creating. So we have our desktop, which means it's going to be for you for computers or laptops. Then we have our tablets, obviously things like your iPad or your Android tablet devices. What is it going to look like on that one? Do I want to change up how those columns are laid out, or do I want to keep it the same? And then we have, lastly, we have our mobile device here at the end. So obviously our iPhone, Samsung phones, your handheld devices that are there. So with that, for the most part, when it does come to your handheld device, very rarely will you ever want columns side by side with each other because the content itself will be squeezed into that little space of phone that you have on there. So you usually want to go to have a full width. So changing each of the columns from being something that's 3 columns down to just 1 column that are stacked on top of each other. So because I have 3 columns, I'm going to want them equal distance apart from each other. So I'm going to want them 33% on each column. So that just means the percentage of the screen that is taken up within the region itself. You can play around with different layouts. For this one, as you can see, we have something where it's like 50, 25, 25. So it's just different how much of those columns are taking up the width of your screen. So I'm going to do that. So again, I want them equal distance. So I'm going to keep them at 33% for each column. And I'm going to do the same for desktop. And I'll keep the same for tablet. But it is always something that when you guys create it for a tablet, if you have a tablet on hand, always double check it just to see what it looks like. And maybe you might want to go down to 100% to keep it single column, or you can keep it at the 33%. So, but I'm going to keep it at the 33%. And I know mobile devices, I always go to 100%. It never really changes. So I'm going to add this section now here at the bottom. Now that I have all my settings in there, my section has gone in. So now I have officially kind of built out that section and I can add in content at this point. But does anybody have any questions on adding a section to your pages for your in the layout builder? Okay, so now that I've built this section that has 3 columns side by side, I can add in different blocks of information in here. So for this one in particular, I'm going to add in, I'm going to click on add block, again, just like how we've done in the past, where the menu pops up to the right. I'm going to create a custom block here, the big blue button at the top. And then for this one in particular, I'm going to create a, let's do, I'll add a Google map in here, something a little bit different. And then in here, I'm going to add my parents' address. Fifth place, thanks, AZ 85032. Okay. I'm going to add this block. And for this one in particular, it should throw up a map. Here we go. That is my parents' house. So I have that block of information in there. It's a Google map. Maybe next to that, I'm going to want a text that goes along with it. So I'm going to create a custom block. I will add in a basic block, which is just going to be text of information. This is a location of my parents' home. Google map allows me to put content in there for visual purposes. Go down and add the block. Add text. It comes up right to the side of it. And then the last one here, I'm just going to add in a basic image block here. Image. I'm going to add media. And then I'm going to throw in, what should I throw in here? Let's see. I will throw in the school bus. Add block. Just adds a basic school bus. And here it is. So now, obviously, this doesn't look the nicest, but as you can see here, you can throw in different blocks of information to kind of start off with. And then we would have the ability to kind of move this kind of content around. But does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. Now that I'm done here, I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to save my layout now that I've kind of done this. And let's take a look at it. So obviously, I have my cool page. I have these 3 columns of block of information. But as you can kind of see here, it doesn't look the fanciest or anything like that, but you can kind of see what you're able to do if you add in these different sections and put in the same kind of content we've been doing throughout the website, just have it in different ways. And then obviously, if I go back to the layout builder itself, I can always move content around so it may look a little bit better than it did. So let's just say I'm going to put this text information up here. I'm going to move this down to the right into the middle block. And let's just say I'm going to get rid of this one. Remove block information, remove it. And then scroll down, save layout. So as you can see here, was able to move some stuff around. Looks a little bit better. There's a lot of white space to that particular map, but this could be a way people have played around with creating those different columns of information and then to be able to kind of create some spacing on their particular site, because sometimes the WYSIWYG within a basic block or even on the page, when you're working within the text WYSIWYG, adding in images can be a little bit of hassle. I would definitely recommend kind of playing around with this layout builder, because if you were to do something like this, and let's say this is the look and feel you wanted to go with, and you wanted a block of information in there, whether that is a Google map, a slideshow, a little text slideshow, or something else, and then have information continue on below it. You can always add in another section below it to continue on various information. So again, if I go into add section, I'm going to create a single column block here. I'm going to stick with the defaults, add that section. And then in here, I'm going to add in a basic block for text. So click on basic block. And then I'm going to throw in some lorem ipsum in here. Go to my favorite lorem ipsum generator, just Cupcake Ipsum. Throw that in there and add a block. I will add in, change this around a little bit. Update. And I will save this. So as you can kind of see here, my 3 columns, I played around with it a little bit. Instead of having it just be filled with information, I can kind of use it to kind of place something a little bit smaller onto my site that divides out that content, that kind of breaks it up a little bit. Some of you may have been working in the past on your guys' site with the WYSIWYG editor. It is definitely a powerful tool to be playing around and adding in media, but sometimes formatting it can be a little bit of a headache. Just kind of consider this type of method where you're kind of playing around with those columns, experimenting even with blank columns that go along with it to add in various content to kind of break up some of the text that you're doing. But this kind of just shows you a way to go about doing that. You can kind of mix and match how that goes. But does anybody have any questions on any of this stuff that we're working on here? Yes, Alex.
So when you're creating all of these blocks on this particular page, can I just leave the names to be like defaulted to like those basic blocks in there instead of naming it differently if it only appears on this one particular page? Or is it going to show up, those blocks that we create, are they going to show up somewhere? It's going to confuse the admin that there's going to be a million basic blocks that are named.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for those of you who are wondering, what Alex is talking about here is that when I go in to add in a block of information and I go to create custom block, so when I create that basic block, as he's saying, it spits up this title that's here, right? It says basic block. It just does a default title in there. You do have to type it in. However, it is something that's not used unless you want it to be used. So for the most part, you can get away with just leaving it as basic block. If we're using a one-time block, and when I say that, we will go over what reusable block is versus a one-time block here in a second. But that one-time block that's only on this page, you can pretty much leave that title as is unless you plan on using it. So for this one in particular, let's just say I'm going to use this. I'm going to create a title for this one. And let's just say this one's called new text. If you click on that display title, it will show what this is. So it's kind of just a label of that block itself. For the most part, you don't need to use it, but you can. But for this one, I'm going to show you what happens when I do. So I'm just going to throw in some more text in there. But to go back to what Alex is asking here, now, Alex, when you put this title as something, yes, when you're using a one-time block, you could title it whatever. It won't start creating a huge list of things. It shouldn't confuse other people. Another thing you might run into is that when you do try to create something or you try to save something, it may say that this title needs to be a unique text. That's because that this title is also used as a quote unquote what they call in the back end a machine title. So and it's supposed to be unique. So sometimes it will ask you to, oh, this needs to be named something else. If you're not displaying that title, you can kind of just name it whatever, just so you can kind of complete that. It's not going to show up anywhere. It's just there for database purposes, so you don't have to worry about that. But again, you wouldn't want to display that if you're showing it onto your particular page. So if you're showing the actual title, obviously you don't want all those numbers, but in case you do run into that, that's kind of the case of what that will be. So so Alex, so what I'm doing here, you can keep it as basic block as long as you're kind of building it on that particular page, nowhere else. It's not going to affect anything. You can kind of keep those default titles that come up.
Okay, thanks.
Now it'd be a different case once we get into our reusable blocks, and I'll cover that once we do. But to show you guys just what happens when I display the title, when I click on that, I'm going to add in this new block of information, and it adds in that title here at the top of that block. So just in case you guys are wondering what happens if I do click on that. So that kind of just breaks it up a little bit, adds in a subtitle, new text, and then more information here. Any other questions? Okay, so we're going to jump into our first task here. So I'm gonna jump back into the presentation. What I want you guys to do is that you're going to create your own layout. So you're going to go to add content. You're going to create your own basic page. The title can be whatever it is that you want. Don't put anything in the body because we're going to start it off as a blank slate and it kind of builds from there. And then, but make sure before you save it, go to the main menu, or go to the menu settings, add the main menu, and then make the parent item my cool page. Then you're going to click save. Then you're going to go to your layout. I want you to remove the body block and the menu block like we did, as I was showing you just before in the demonstration. And then at the bottom of the page, create a section with 3 columns, the bootstrap 3 column, and then add 1 basic block to each of the columns. You can use lorem ipsum in there to fill in the text. I'll give everybody about 10 minutes to do that. Let me know if anybody runs into issues or has a question. Okay, so we have a few more minutes here. Does anybody have any questions? Anything, or anybody running into any problems? Okay, just a couple more minutes here. All right, I'm going to switch back over to the website. Going to refresh here. Okay, so for this, as you can see, I can see that some of you had already added pages here below my cool page. In case yours is not showing up here and you have any questions, just definitely let me know, and we can get that resolved for you. But now that those pages are created, I'm going to go to Alex's page here as an example. So as you can kind of see here, he started putting some information in here. He has 3 columns of text. So you can see the different blocks that he used. Alex, for this one in particular, did you use the title of the blocks themselves, or did you add in those on the WYSIWYG?
Yeah, I actually removed that one because it was getting in the way. So that first column there actually is a styling from the basic block that I added.
Okay. Okay. But as you can see here, obviously he also added in a banner as well. But you kind of see how your pages can start to kind of look. I mean, this looks nice with the titles of each of the blocks of information, but how you can kind of put those things side by side. So it's kind of a good start for those pages themselves. So I'm going to go up to back to my page here itself. And as you see here, one thing that's a little that I would like to do is actually put back in that that navigation, just so it's not just up here, but I can have it on my particular pages here for this section. So for this one, I'm going to go back to layout. I'm going to just below this section here, I'm going to add in a 2 column layout. So I'm going to create a custom block. I'm going to go to, whoops, wrong thing. That's not what I want to do. I'm going to go to add section. I'm going to add in a section. I'm going to create 2 columns here. And I'm going to do the default for the desktop. I'm doing 6733. I'll keep the same for the tablet, 6733. And then the mobile, I'll keep it at 100. So add in the sections above my 3 column section. So as you guys can see here, just something I want to cover, where the button add section is, we'll put it in between those different regions that you may have already created. So kind of just keep that in mind in case you need to add something below or above. Just do it at the section that is below or above it. It's pretty simple. So for this one, I'm going to drop in the content for this one, and then I'm going to add block. I'm going to add back in that that main navigation. So instead of going to create custom block, I know that the main navigation obviously is already created. I'm just going to go down to the menu section. So here's a menu, and then I'm going to do main navigation. I'm not sure why everything's doubling up here, but I think we should be fine here. And then the initial visibility level, I'm going to do 2. And what 2 means is that I'm only going to look at, for the main menu, because I'm building up the main menu, I am just taking everything that is from the second level down, just so I don't have to see everything else that's not in part of the section. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Oops, adds it on here, the placeholder for the main navigation block. And I'm going to go ahead and click save. So as you can see here, I do have the other pages here as well. It doesn't quite look like how they used to look, but I will show you how to fix that, because that has been something that's come up here. Some people have had questions on before. And this is something that we are going to be fixing later on. So how we fix it is a little bit not the most intuitive or the most user-friendly, but we're going to go ahead and fix that just so you don't run into this issue. So, but to fix that, I'm going to go back up to the layout. And in this section, I'm going to configure section 3. So there's some advanced settings that we will be playing around with today. So in the advanced settings, you'll notice in the top of the configure for the section, you'll notice this little paintbrush, which is going to be style. This is where you can change the background color. You can change the typography color, which the text that's in there. You can change the alignment of things, the spacing of how things are placed. Sometimes when you're building in sections, you might feel like they're too close to each other. They're kind of stacked upon each other. But we can fix that by fixing the spacing of a section. And then you can add in a border and even some animation that goes along with that. And we'll get to that in a second. But for this one in particular, I'm going to go into settings. And in the settings, I have the ability to kind of create some things here. So this is for more advanced user people who are using HTML or CSS and want to add in some wrapper classes, be able to add in some YAML stuff in here containing wrapper attributes. For the most part, you won't have to worry about this. But what I do want to do is that I want to go to column settings, and I'm going to go into column 2 class. So you can set a class. So for those of you who do some CSS and need to add some classes into particular places on the website, this could be a useful tool where you can add in a class to a particular column or to a particular section. You can do that as well. So you can always add some style along with it. But for the row 2 class, I think I want to put, what do I want to put here? Was it nav? In 1 second. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm grabbing the right class name. Sidebar. That's what it's called. I'm going to name this one sidebar. Update. That throws in a class that will change it back to how it should be looking for that side navigation. I'm just going to go ahead and click Save Layout. And that brings it up to date. So now it looks more like the rest of the site itself. But the reason I had to do that, obviously, is because we did delete out that that default section so I had to kind of add it back in. And so when I did that, I had to add in that class. That's something that that we will be fixed, so it's a lot easier to kind of to come across that. So now that I have that, the next thing I want to kind of show you guys, obviously we've been playing around with one-time blocks. What I want to get into is what is the difference between a one-time use block and a reusable block, and how do we go about creating those things? So far, when we've been creating content on the site or creating these blocks of information on these layout builders, they're only used one time. So if I ever wanted to use this text of information, or let's say I wanted to use this map and use it on Alex's page, I wouldn't be able to do that because, or I'd have to recreate it if anything. So I couldn't just take this and then place it onto his particular page. What I have to do is I actually have to create a reusable block. So again, a one-time use block has been this whole adding a block here and then clicking that, as soon as it pops up, clicking that big blue button that says create custom block. Just know that this will be just a one-time use only. And then you can move it around as you see fit on this particular page. But what I want to do is I want to create something that I can use for all pages. So in order to do that, we're going to go to the admin menu here to the left, and we're going to go to structure. Under structure, we're going to go to block layout. I'm just going to click on block layout. So in case you accidentally click on block layout, this is something you don't have to worry about as far as these different headers and stuff like that's right here. Where you want to click on is the custom block library. So you can click on it here at the top of this particular page. Or to kind of quickly get there, you would go to block layout and then custom block library and click on that. And this will bring you to this page. So what this custom block layout is that this is where I am allowed to create reusable blocks, blocks that are going to be, that can be used throughout the site. So it doesn't have to be just one page. And then when I edit that block, it edits for all the places that's placed around the website. So in order to kind of create that, in the top right corner, we'll see this big button that says add custom block. This is where I go to create that reusable block. So for this one in particular, I'm going to create a, let's go with card set. We create a card set. I'm going to make it just 2 columns here. I'm going to title this first card as card 1. I'm going to add in a media that goes along with it. Let's see here. We will use this Chick-fil-A stuff because it is lunchtime and I'm sure you guys are hungry. And then for this link, I'm just going to link it off to, let's say this one in particular goes to www.google.com. Link text, you will say learn more. I will go back to Cupcake Ipsum. Again, if you guys need a lorem ipsum generator, Cupcake Ipsum is always a good one. Generate that. Let's use this text here. Copy. Go back to the site. And then the body of this particular card I'm creating, I'm going to put that body in there. And then I'm going to add in one more card. So for this card, again, I will name this one card 2. We'll use that other Chick-fil-A picture. I will link this to an interior page. Go to the About page. And then in this link text, I'll put learn more again. In the body, throw in that lorem ipsum. And I will go down and click save. So this is something that you guys might run into. So it will say a custom block with the block description card set already exists. Now, what that means is that this looking for something unique. This is something that's going to be used, going to be put onto a list, and you'll be able to go in there and search for it and find it. So for this one, you can't just call everything card set, or else you have a huge list of everything that's called card set, and you won't be able to distinguish between the two. So it's looking for something unique. So for this one in particular, I'm going to call this Vincent Training Card Set. So I can look for that. I'm going to use this later. So, but it is, I want it to be something that's going to be memorable, so I know exactly what this card set is. Actually, I'm going to change this to card set Chick-fil-A. So now I know exactly what this card set is about. Again, try to name it something descriptive so you know exactly what it is that you're putting in there. I'm going to go down and click save. So we're good there. I can see right here, it is in my list of all the custom blocks. So we're good there. So then what I want to do next is I want to go back to my cool page, the one that I was working on. So for my cool page, I'm going to go back to the layout builder, and I want to add in that particular reusable block that I just created. So when I'm in here, I'm going to put it right below the title of it, my cool page, and then I'm going to add a block. So if I'm adding a reusable block, instead of going to create custom block, I don't need to do that. What I could do is I could scroll down to the custom section. Custom section is where you're going to find all of your reusable blocks. But you can also search for it by searching by it for the name. So this one I called card set Chick-fil-A. So as you kind of see here, as I'm typing this in, it will pull it right up here. And the reason why I couldn't use card set, obviously, is because that's already created something. So for card set Chick-fil-A, I'm going to click on that. You can leave the default. Again, it's going to try to set another title to it. It's just for database machine purposes. You can ignore it and just add block. So now that I've added that block in here, as you can see here, it has my two cards in here. That's how I want it to look. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save Layout. So obviously, one of the cool things that we can do with a reusable block is that I can add this onto multiple different places, right? So now that I added onto this page, I can go to Alex's page. And in the layout, I'm going to go ahead under his section 2. I'm just going to put it up here. I'm going to search for it again, card set. Sometimes this thing could be a little funny. Exit out there. In case you ever run into that issue, just close it out and open it back up. So there's my card set, Chick-fil-A. I'll add it onto his page. Stick with defaults, click save. And it has added that onto his page as well. So as you guys can see, it's kind of, now that I created that block once, and now I'm able to use it on multiple pages itself. Now that I've added it, one cool thing it's about is that when I'm outside the layout builder, and let's say I'm scrolling through the website and I notice something like, oh, you know what? I want to change something. I want to add something to this particular one. So if I go to edit, I can quickly go to edit. And I'm on one of the pages that the block is on. I'm going to change the mode. I want it to be 3 columns. I want to add in one more card here. So I'm going to add in a card. And we're going to call this card 3. Add media. And then I'm going to add in, let's do these brownies. Insert this image. I'm going to link it to, say, landing page 3, link text, learn more, throw in some more lorem ipsum, scroll down, and click save. So as you can see here, I added another card to this particular section. So I did it on his page. Now, if I go back to my page, you will see it updates there as well. So that's one of the good things about using a reusable block. Instead of recreating the same block on each individual pages where they're not connected, this reusable block is connected now to all of those pages. So if I change it one place, it changes it everywhere. So in case I wanted to do that and I had these particular cards on every single page in this section, then I would have to go into each individual one. If I created it one by one, I would have to go to each individual one and update them. Whereas if I use the reusable block, I'm using it for it. Once I change it one place, it changes to all places. Now, does anybody have any questions on reusable blocks? Okay. So for the next task, I want everybody to be able to kind of create their own reusable block. So you're going to go to structure, block layout, and go to that custom block library. At the top right-hand corner of that, you're going to click on add custom block. I want you to create a text with image. Give it a title for whatever you want, but make sure it's something relevant so you can search for it later. You're going to fill out all the fields. You're going to add an image. You're going to save that block. And then once you save it and you're back into that overview page, I want you to go back to your page and then go to the layout view and place that block in 2 different areas on the same page. So I'll give everybody about 10 minutes to do so. Let me know if anybody has any questions on anything. Okay, we have a couple more minutes here. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to jump back into the website here. So continue to work with that if you're still working on it. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to go on my particular page. I'm just going to go to layout and see if I can add anybody's block of information that they added here. So I'm going to go in because we were doing a text with images side by side. I see that Alex has already created his. So I'm going to create one more here. I'm going to go back down to custom. Let's see here. I'm going to do this. Let's do brownie text with image. Put it right below. Again, just keep the default. Throw it in there. As you can see, just add the text side by side with image. And obviously I can move this around, or I can add it in different places as well. I can add it into the bottom of the page itself. I'm going to use the same one, go down to custom, go to brownie text with image. Save it. There it is there as well, just in a different size. So as you guys can see, obviously, we can use this. I'm sure you guys put these onto your own particular pages. Alex put one on my page as well. You're able to kind of put these things, mix and match them however you want, whatever you see fit for your particular site itself. And even within one particular page, you can use that same block in different ways. Have it look a little bit different, but however you see fit for your page itself. Does anybody have any questions on creating these reusable blocks? Okay, so I'm going to move on here. What we're going to do is that we're going to get a little bit more creative with our layouts that we're creating here. So obviously you guys have now been able to kind of create your layouts, create different columns, different sections you want to do, be able to put some information in there. However, what we want to do is that we want to start playing around with that look and feel of how things are, to make things a little bit more unique here. So I'm actually going to start off with something blank. I'm going to start with a blank slate. I'm just going to create, you don't have to do this. I'm just going to start with a blank slate here. I'm going to call this even cooler page. I'm going to add this onto the same section. Under the main navigation, I'm going to put it under my cool page. Going to click save. Try something fresh. And in the layout itself, going to change some stuff around here. So now that we've kind of started mix and matching and how things look from one section to the other, I'm going to play around with some stuff here. What I want to do here is I'm going to add in I'm going to get rid of this section. Remove it. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to add in a new section in here. I'm going to call it, let's just call it, we'll do a single column here. And with this single column, what I want to do is I'm going to add in a new block, but I'm going to stylize what this section even looks like to begin with. So let's just say for this, I'm going to add in a color for the background. I'm going to throw in a light color here. It's going to be this light gray. The typography, I'll leave it as black. It's default to black, so you can just leave that as the default. For the alignment of the text, I'm going to put it at center. Spacing, I'm going to add some space in between this section. You'll see what it does here in a second. Usually what I like to go with, what seems like good spacing for stuff, is the 64. You can do it at the top and the bottom. You can change the sides as well. I recommend not doing the sides, the left or right sides, just because it kind of makes things a little bit more, it'll throw some kind of alignment of some things off. So I'm just going to kind of stick with that. And then margins, I'll leave alone. And I'm going to do an animation for this. I'm going to click fade up. Fade's kind of a real subtle animation, but does add a little bit to your page itself. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to add that section. So as you can see here, it kind of gives me this new section that's gray, and I can add in some block of information. So I'm going to add in something here. I'm just going to do a custom block here, for example. Do a basic block. I'm going to throw in, this is my title. Below that, I'm going to throw in some of the lorem ipsum in here. For this one in particular, I'm going to make this, I'm going to put it as heading 2. That adds in a title, basic, add save. So as you can see here, this adds in a title. You'll see this white space behind it. This just shows up on just the layout builder. This won't show up once I save this. But as you can see here, it forced everything to be center aligned. I didn't put that in the WYSIWYG. You could do that on the WYSIWYG if you go to the full HTML. That's one way of doing it. But you can also force everything in the section itself to be the center aligned. So for this one in particular, I am going to just save it as is. So when I click on that, here is that title. So here is just kind of a different section that's different from everything else. I am going to add in, let's just add in some text above it as well, just so we can get used to how that kind of looks. I'm going to add in a basic block of information in here. Let's just create it and do some text. Throw some longer text in here. Add block. And then click save. And as you can see here, where we can kind of break up some things in here. Obviously, I just did one column. You can have this whole section be gray and then also have 2 columns, 3 columns, whatever it is to kind of break up that information. Maybe it's the image with text side by side. Those are things that you can look into. But these are type of things that you can play around with to kind of make your site feel a little bit more stylized here, to be able to kind of do some cool things in here. One thing I'm noticing here is that in this particular section where the title and this text is, it's a little bit closer than I would like. I probably want some more space in there. So again, you can go into your layout, change some of the spacing that is there. So for this section, I'm going to go to configure this section. And under spacing, I'm just going to add some bottom spacing to the bottom. So I'm going to go to the bottom, going to add in that 64. Going to click update. As you can see, it kind of added in some space in here in the layout builder, but you won't really know what it looks like until you save it and just take a look from the outside. And there it is. So as you can see, kind of add in some more space. Maybe you want to make that smaller. You can make it bigger, but it is going to give it some breathing room. And then I want to add in just one more thing in here. I'm just going to add in a banner, probably or one that's already created. So I'm going to click on add block to this top section. Scroll down to custom. Banner for cool pages. Add block. Throws in a banner that I already created in the past. I'm going to save that layout. And then the thing I did want to show you, when you start playing around with those styles, there's a lot of things you can mix and match and how it looks. But one thing I wanted to show you was that small animation. You guys may have already noticed it as I'm kind of loading up pages here. But when I scroll down to that particular section, as you can see, that kind of pops up. It kind of gives it a little something. There's some animations that are on there that don't look very great. And you'll notice that as you're kind of playing around with. But as you can see that small just transition of how those pages are built, those things will pop up just like that, where it kind of has this small easy transition where it doesn't do much, but it kind of adds a little something to your website that kind of gives it this nice kind of classy kind of feel to it, if you want to use that word. But those are the type of things that you can go along and do. And as you can see, just with some stuff that's already pre-built onto the page and stuff that I've created here in the past, creating this page didn't take me that long. Once you kind of get used to it, you're going to be able to build these pages faster and faster and have them look very nice and kind of play around with how these things work. So, for example, I'm going to go back in. For this particular one, I want to add in one more section here below. I'm just going to make it another simple one column with the things. I'm going to add in a animation. I'm going to use the fade up. Or, you know what? I'm going to use the fade left just so you can kind of see the different things that go along with it. I'm going to click add section. So that's the basic. And I'm going to throw back in that block, the reusable block that I created earlier of those various cards. So I'm going to go back down to custom, Chick-fil-A, add the block. Click save layout. And I have that right there where you can kind of see as I scroll down that kind of fades in from the right, kind of goes over, and where this one kind of fades in from the bottom. So there's some interesting things that you can go along and do it if you kind of play around and make your site look fairly interesting. Other things you can do, if I'm creating a layout, and let's say that for this particular section, as it pops in, you can always configure it and move things around, where for this one in particular, let's say I want to create it so it is edge to edge with no gutters. So this will take it. So those cards will go from edge to edge. But I'm also going to add in a color behind it. Now, you'll notice these two blank colors down here, color 1, color 2. That actually is depending on the theme that you have set for your site. So the different color themes. Some people have kind of a blue. Some people are using the default red. Those colors will change depending on what that theme is, which is why there's no set color on here. We're probably going to fix this so it does show it, so you know exactly what we're picking. So I'm just going to choose color 1 as an example. Let's take a look. I'm going to click save. As you see here, it brought an edge to edge, but there is some blue bars below it. So let's just go ahead and let's click save layout. Let's take a look. So as you can see here, it did put a blue background at the bottom. It is here at the top, but that's because we have no spacing. It doesn't look quite right. But as you see, everything goes edge to edge. This may be a look you want to adopt. This may not. But I'm just showing you kind of the things that you can do with it. So what I want to show is that I'm going to fix that though, because that doesn't look the greatest, but just show some things that you can play around with. For this particular one, I'm going to go back in. I'm going to add some spacing just so we can see that blue a little bit better. So I'm going to go back, have the blue, the spacing. I'm going to add some padding to the top and bottom. Again, let's do that 64, bottom 64. And then I also want to, I'm going to change it back to the box with gutters. Save it. As you see, there's blue to the top and bottom. I'm going to save the layout. Whoops, sorry. And that looks a little bit better than it did before. But as you see here, there's things that you can do. And you can always mix and match and push these things where you need to go, and all those settings will stay the same. So again, if I wanted to just move that block of information down, I can do that, and it will take everything from this one as well. So I'm going to put this below everything. I'm going to go back up. I'm going to save it. And one thing there's going to be something here I want you guys to take a look at. This blue bar is there. That's because I put spacing in here, and even if there's not any content within this section, it will add that spacing automatically. So you will have something that does have some height, and it will have that blue bar. But those are things that we can easily fix by just deleting out that particular thing. But as you can see here, I threw these cards in here, and now they're being forced to a center alignment. Just so you guys know that when you do have that set on a section level, it will change everything. It will force everything to meet its criteria. So in case you guys do kind of run into that issue. And then the last thing, if you guys are playing around with PNGs that have that transparent background, there's some interesting stuff that you can go ahead and do there. For example, instead of using maybe a traditional banner, the way that we do here, I'm going to change something here. So I'm going to remove this block, this banner block. I'm going to add in a text with image. So I'm going to create a custom block. It is a text with image is what I want. The body, I will throw in the lorem ipsum that we have, but I will keep it minimized here. So not so much. We're just the first sentence. And then want to add in, this is another creative way. So I'm going to change this to full HTML. I'm going to make it heading 1. I'm going to give it a style. Let's do heading, this first one here. That puts a little red bar there. And then I'm just going to select an image that is in my media library. Let's see. I want to select this agency platform logo thing here. This is a PNG that has a transparent background. So there's some things that we can do here. So as you see here, it matches the transparency, matches with the gray. I'm going to add in this block here. Let me just get rid of this while I'm down here. That move. So here, kind of have this large image side by side with this on that that top section. Last thing I want to do here is I want to put in a background color to kind of give it something. I'm gonna add some spacing because I know that that would be a problem once we do. Again, I'm gonna use 32 here, for example. And then lastly, I'm not gonna add an animation. I'll just save that. Save the layout. So as you guys can see here, instead of creating that banner, I'm using a different block. And I'm using some of the tricks that we're learning here with the colors, with the spacing to kind of give it a banner feel without it actually being a banner itself. So I'm not just boxed into how the banner works. I can kind of create my own banners through this method of kind of just playing around with the layout builder itself. Now, does anybody have any questions on any of this stuff that we've been working on? Okay. It is time. We only have the schedule to about 1:30. If you guys do want to stick around, we do have one more task for you guys to do, which is to kind of get creative, to create your own landing page, add some colors, add some 3 different custom blocks to the different areas and add spacing to those sections. You can add in whatever it is that you want. Add some of the animations, play around with that. But if you guys have any questions on any of that, please feel free to let us know. But yeah, if you guys got to get going, it is 1:33. So thank you guys all for coming out. Our next training will be not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, which we'll be revisiting the basics again to kind of, in case you were kind of a little bit lost, definitely say attend the basics class, and we will kind of go through that foundational knowledge that we have for this particular training.
Wouldn't it be in 3 Wednesdays on the 14th? Second Wednesday?
What is next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday is the 31st.
Oh, it's the very last thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Then yes, actually it would be in 3 Wednesdays.
Yeah. So the 14th will be basics, and then the 28th will be advanced.
Okay. Yes. So Alex, do you have a question?
Yeah, actually, I do have a couple of questions about the site that I'm currently working on.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can, basically the service and the resource content types, I've noticed that it only had the 1 column on it, and there's kind of like no layout options for those content types. Was that intended, or is there a way I can add a second section or a second, basically a sidebar to those content types so I can add some reusable blocks on some of those pages?
Yeah, so that's kind of built in as intended, just for consistency for all the sites themselves. If you did want to create kind of your own custom layout for those resources, for those services, it is possible. And we can kind of help you out with that. It is possible. We just want to make sure that, they're, for all your services, they all look the same exact way, or same thing with all your resources, they all look the same exact way. But that's something we can help you out with.
Okay, so I am able to kind of make a ticket for it and just have somebody just add a second block to it or something like that, or a second column to those.
Yeah, we might just have to give you, it's either a second column or however you want it to look. In your case, we will probably just give you permissions to do it, so you can kind of do it on your own. I'm not sure if our maintenance team will have the bandwidth to kind of work with you on it too in-depthly, but that's kind of getting a little bit more into the customization type of things.
Okay. My second question is the resource. Basically, if I kind of want to duplicate some of those listings that you guys already kind of created, like the resource listing, for example. So I like the way that it is already, how it's built, but I just kind of want to create a sub-listing where I can create my own taxonomy. So do I just duplicate that listing and create a different taxonomy to pull those things from? Those search terms?
Yeah, so that might be another thing that you can reach out, unless you have, I'm not sure how familiar you are, if you've been building views at all, but what you would do is that's based off of the views. So if you are familiar with views itself, you would have to copy that view and then add your own parameters to that. So if you're saying, I want everything from this taxonomy, you can do that as well, just so you kind of copy it and then do it.
Yeah, I tried creating that already. Basically, I duplicated a view and then basically created my own taxonomy and told it to kind of pull it from there, but it just seems like it was working. Maybe I was missing something, or, you know. So I don't know if that's something that I would need to reach out to you guys, or is that another ticket?
Yeah, it would probably be another ticket to kind of help you out with that, or we can reach out and I kind of sit down with you to kind of go over that. But let's say let's try one out here. I'll show you as an example. Let me switch back to the thing. So let's say for our resources, right? So for this one in particular, I'm going to go to taxonomy, right? And we have our document category, which those resources are built off of. So I'm going to click on that.
Yeah, because essentially this is kind of like the main taxonomy for the resources, I think.
Yeah.
But I created another one.
Yeah.
I wanted it to kind of like, basically I just wanted to have a different one so that the user can select from just those categories, but it would still be pulling from these search terms, so to say, basically still from the same listing.
Same listing, but you say just certain terms of it?
Yeah, basically I didn't want all of this to show up on the on the drop down, because there's a lot of options here. So I created my own options with the same terms.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things that I know that are a little bit difficult, right? So let's say I wanted to make a view of just the agenda and minutes, right?
Yeah.
I can filter it out where it's just showing the agenda and minutes, but when we start talking about filtering, like the drop down where it says, oh, what document type do you want? Do you want agendas or do you want minutes? When you have something filtering within another filter of the same list, it gets a little bit wonky, doesn't quite work very intuitively. So that's something more in depth I would have to kind of get into. So that's probably not the best case there. But what I was going to show you is I was just going to build out something, let's say, just for annual reports. Obviously, if you just copy it down and you say, I only want to pull everything from annual reports, you can do that. And you can even get rid of the filters because you won't maybe need a document filter at that point. You just want to show the annual report. So you do that as well. But that's a possibility too. So I guess when we're talking about having that drop down filter on top of one that's already filtered out for just the agendas and minutes, it does get a little bit wonky. And I would definitely say put in a ticket for that one.
Okay, I see. But it is possible to just have just the one search parameter and just show a certain view, right?
Yeah.
That would be more stable, so to say?
Yeah.
Okay, can you show me how to do that?
Yeah, so let me just check something. So for this document category, actually, I'm going to go to the resources on this particular page. Okay, let's see. I have annual report on here. I have 2 annual reports. Okay, so let's say I wanted to create a page for just annual reports, right? So what I'm going to do is that for this particular view, so I can create another block and have it called annual reports, and that is one way of going about it. What I'm not sure of, and what I always just tell people to do is that sometimes when we push up, let's say if we were ever to push up an update to the resource listing, the default resource listing, I don't want it to accidentally erase something that you have worked on. So what I always recommend to do is that instead of just creating a new block in here, I would duplicate the entire view. So I always call it, if I'm doing that, I'm just going to call it custom resource listing. So that way, in case we ever do push up an update, I don't want it to accidentally erase something. It wouldn't erase what you just created here. So this custom resource listing. That way, so you can kind of play around with it without it being accidentally deleted. I don't know if it will or not. It's just one of those things where I'm afraid it might. So I just don't
that's usually how I try to do it. Is I just usually just duplicate something instead of.
Yeah. So for this one in particular, I'm going to just duplicate the block here. So now that I have my own view that I can work in, so I'm in custom resource listing. So I'm going to create my own view. I'm going to call this block. This block, I'm going to call it annual reports.
Oh, I
so
see.
I know. So I know that I am pulling exactly just annual reports. So I still have all the default things in here. So for the document type, I am actually going to make sure I'm not going to expose it to the visitors. It's only going to be a filter that I'm creating. And I'm going to say that
annual reports.
Yeah, so is just one of annual reports.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was playing around with, and I was kind of selecting like multiple things in there, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah, so I could do multiple things in here, right? So if I did annual reports and let's say budget, so I can click on those. So budget, annual reports. So this will tell me is one of. So I just click is either or.
Yeah.
So I'll click on that, and it will show budget stuff here as well. So I threw in one more in there. So it has budget in there. So it does have it, but what I had to do is that I had to turn off that exposed feature on there. So it makes it work better.
So if I turn off the exposed, then it should work, right? So if I don't expose it to the user, it should work.
Yes.
I see. So that was the only thing I think that was different from what I was doing then.
Yeah. So I would take off the exposed because that exposed just throws things off a little bit. I'm sure there is some kind of workaround. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head. But it is like kind of just obviously just kind of a noise thing. So so now if I create something, I'm just going to use resources page as an example. And below this, I'm going to add in just the annual report section. So I'm going to go to layout. I'm going to add in this block.
And it should just be under those same listings that you guys had earlier.
Yeah, I can just search for it too. I think I should be able to pull it up here. List views, announcements. Yeah, custom resource listing, annual reports. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to display a title here just right now, just so we kind of separate those two.
Oh, you can actually select how many are going to show on the page.
Yeah, I would say just leave that as whatever the default is. It should be controlled by the view itself.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't recommend changing it on there.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that works.
Yeah. So now I have my resource listing here at the bottom. So it's pulling the I think the title, whatever is set in the view. Yeah. So but as you can see here, now I'm just displaying just the annual reports and the budget. So that's just one way of doing it. And then you can always, instead of displaying the title, obviously you could just throw up another text up here that just says annual reports, just separate it out.
Okay, I'll try this thing out. I think this seems to be working. I was just really frustrated that it wasn't working when I was doing it, just because I can't put those drop downs in there. That was the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll play around with it and I'll let you guys know.
Okay.
One more question I have. I've been playing around with the Contact Us web form, and I've been playing around with you putting an option for the user. So like, because right now it only goes to one email, and I want the user to have like multiple options depending on the issue that they're having. So I mean, if you want to go to that link, that page I just created on the training, so under my cool page, my page, and then so you can kind of see what I'm looking at.
Yeah. On the one, the Alex cool page?
Yeah, the Alex's cool page. I added the link to the site. Yeah, just click on the view current projects. You should have access to this. I mean, you guys are. So if you click on the contact us form,
Mhm.
so if you scroll down, see like those little check boxes. So I kind of wanted the user to, like, if they select the checkbox, that it will also copy the email, or it will copy this thing to an email address that is associated with those checkboxes.
Yeah.
So I tried building it on that end, and I tried testing it, but it doesn't seem to be working. So is that something
Yeah.
that I should do?
So let me go back to, because I'm already logged into the training page. Let's just take a look at this real quick. So you can go to contact us. Let's go to build. All right, let me just add in an element here. Let's do. Sorry. Oh my God, it's doing that thing again. I need to update this training thing. They need to update this training website with the latest code. All right, never mind. We're going to go to your site. We're breaking.
Yeah, it's probably better to just go to my site, man.
Yeah.
You should have automatic access to all of these websites, right?
Yeah. Well, I just have to request my password here real quick. Okay, let's see here. So where we actually want to go, now that you kind of have those different selections, actually what I want to go to is settings. And then you'll have your email handlers here, right? So you have the different emails that pull up here. You have email confirmation, email notification, and then there's things that you can go along and do this here with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a email. So let's just say,
I see.
Yeah, we're going to do, as it loads, we'll call this one human resources email.
I see. Okay.
And then so to email, we could put in this custom. You can see my screen, right? Let me make sure I'm sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. Custom email address. So let's just say this is hr@azdoa.gov. And then you can do a CC to anyone in particular, whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
You can leave that the default, the site email, whatever it is. We should be able to add in that this is triggered by conditions that are up here at the top. So for the conditions is that we'll enable this. If all the following is met. Okay, so what we need is that if we say human resources checkboxes, if this one is checked, it will send it to human resources. So I'll save it. So that adds that logic to it. So then in general, there we go. I won't send anything out because I don't know if HR at AZDWay is a real thing. I'm going to save it down here real quick. So this is now enabled. So whenever something is selected, and obviously I have my default stuff in there, whatever this is, web form submitted, whatever. Save it. Come on. Don't fail me.
It doesn't show up here that that one is active. So I have to go into that email confirmation to see what has been added.
Not the email confirmation. It would just be, actually, do I need to add a handler first? Let me see. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Scheduled email, options, checklist, limits. That's fine. No, we should be good there. Yeah, for some reason, my thing was just kind of not adding it, but you want to do that, what I just did, right?
Yeah.
Where you set that condition.
Yep. And so,
and
do
then,
all of that.
Yeah, so it will trigger if that is true. So you want to play around with that.
Yeah, but is that email handler you just added, is it going to show up on this listing or no? Where
it
is
should.
That?
I'm not sure why it didn't. If it's not, this is something we could put into a ticket. I am running into issues with the web forms. I want to make sure all that's fixed.
Okay.
So make sure.
So once I've added these handlers, then what do I do with the web form on the checklist side?
You don't do anything.
Oh, there it is.
So there we go. It adds it in there. So it takes
save it.
It does it. So it's to HR, and then there is a condition that's along with it. So. And obviously, in case you need that disabled, you can always disable things. You can still be there, but be disabled, and then so it won't trigger automatically. Yeah. But it will show up there on that list.
Okay, so my checklists should work now based on these handlers that I would create.
Yeah.
So I think there was like a token I had to add, and I guess I added email addresses in there instead. So do I just add those handlers on that field? Where I had
no, not that field. You don't have to do any of that. This is taking care of it. So once somebody clicks submit, it will go through the email confirmation stuff. So so it sends a confirmation email, sends a notification. Then it will check for this one. It says, do I need to send this test email? So and then the condition is, if this is checked, that send it over to that person.
So it's the condition is basically what I put on those checkboxes.
Yeah.
So it does matter that it has to be verbatim, like capital spaces and stuff like that, or is it not checking for those?
It doesn't check for those. What it's checking for, unless you have to specifically look for those things, right? So usually if you're setting something up like this, and you have those conditions, you want it to be either a checkbox or a drop-down list item, whatever it is.
Okay.
So that way it is checking for this one where it is saying that you wouldn't want to use first name, right? And it says it needs to be, the value is, and then say whatever, right? So that means that whatever now needs to have a capital W. It needs to be spelled like this in order for it to trigger. So, so what you want to do is that, what can I help you with? And human resources, the value is, or should say, is filled, or it should be checkboxed, whatever it is. Play around with that, because sometimes their logic is a little bit, doesn't make sense, but it's either filled or empty, or you can do a you can do a is not empty thing in there as well. Let's say let's just filled. I'm not sure why it's not saving this. Let's just save it. So it's disabled. I'll make sure it's enabled. Right.
Okay, yeah, I'll go around and play with this thing. But yeah, thanks for going over with this with me.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, test that out. It doesn't, for this particular thing, it doesn't seem it's like it's adding it on there. I'm not sure why. So maybe state is enabled. Maybe because I didn't set this. I just want to make sure. Because maybe I didn't select that. Human resources, just checked.
Yeah.
Right, click save. Yeah, it's doing that thing again. So not saving it. Play around with it. If you're running into that same issue as I am, submit a ticket into Matt Thomas. If they're getting confused, reach out to me and I will kind of sit down and explain it to them.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Vincent.
All right. Yeah, no problem. Have a good one, Alex.
All right. You too, man.